shared with the students who become better dentists as a result. In this talk, I do hope to share with you our experience and some of the lessons we have learned during this 10 years evolution of our use of electronic patient records. First, an overview of the University of Oslo. Well, we do not have that very long history. The University of Oslo we were founded in 1811. At that time we were part of Denmark in a union, later with Sweden. But this was very important to establish a university in the capital of Oslo for the national feeling. Today it's 8 faculties, 3 museums, 7,000 employees and almost 27,000 students. That's a big university. The faculty of dentistry is still a faculty. And we fight very hard to keep dentistry as an own faculty. We can't see that has been no success by implementing to the medical faculties as we have seen in other cities of Scandinavia. So we will continue to be a faculty of dentistry for the future also. And hopefully, I do hope that that will also be the future, that we will be an independent faculty at the university. At our faculty, we do have 55,000 patient visits a year. Regarding the students, 66 dental hygienists, 340 undergraduates as a master program in dentistry, 52 specialist candidates at the postgraduate program where we have endodontics, orthodontics, oral surgery, periodontology, endodontics. Yeah. And for the moment, 42 PhD students. We do also have a staff with 65 full-time faculty members, 120 part-time faculty, 10 affiliate faculty, and 450 total staff. We are now located in the center of Oslo with the main clinical buildings in the almost main city center. We do have a preclinical institute, Institute of Oral Biology. It's located at the main hospital in Oslo. And there we have done a lot of innovation during the last years, where we have a new training center for preclinical training. And probably, for the moment, the most modern in the world, that's what I say. But of course, the development will continue, so within a couple of years, maybe we are not there. But at the moment, probably one of the most modern preclinical training centers in the world. As a faculty, we do have focus on some topics for research. Maybe we are mostly strong in biomaterials and to bone development, etc. We also focus on health promotion and preventive procedures, craniofacial development, diagnosis and treatment, surface biology and biofilm, and tissue regeneration. The first use of computers by all types of commercial and public institutions was in administration, particularly financial administration. This was true for dental systems, both in private practice and dental schools, where the initial focus was on capturing enough details about patients and their treatments to achieve payment, whether by the government, by insurance companies, or by the patient themselves. However, the clinical record was still in the form of paper notes, so this billing information was disconnected and had to be keyed separately, leading to inconsistencies and lost revenue. EDR system first appeared in private practice. They provided greater efficiency and effectiveness in clinical patient care and improved collection of billing information. Computer system for dental schools followed the same pattern. Much of the early focus was on administration and managing the allocation of dental chairs to students. Later versions of the EDR increasingly met the clinical needs and the educational needs, such as faculty authorizations and grading of the students. The area that until now has not been sufficiently supported by the EDR system is the research focus. And I will tell you a little bit about that later. Our own history of electronic system followed this pattern. The faculty started using an electronic patient administrative system, Salud, in 2001. It tracked all the student activity and it maintained all patient administrative information, and the clinics were all equipped with shared side terminals by 2004, which enabled us to start implementing the EDR September 2005. As the former director of the Institute of Clinical Dentistry, I was ultimately responsible for the strategy and the implementation of this computer system. And that, I can tell you, was not an easy job. To implement an electronic patient records, even in hospitals or in dental institution, well, you have to be very, very well prepared for doing that. Most of you will see that a lot of people, they would like to still continue to use the feather pen. You have conservative people who would not like to take and use these electronic devices. But I had the advantage of actually being a user of the system in a different role as a director of the institute, and I will tell you, if you're chairing an institute, if you're chairing a faculty, it's important. I am a professor in oral surgery and oral medicine. I will show you how you can benefit from using an EDR as an academic, and however, as a clinician, I'm using the system as a clinician myself. I made it my business to learn how to use these systems and actually to use them on a day-to-day basis. I remember when we decided to go live in 1st of September 2005. I was scared during that summer vacation, and it was not a real summer vacation. I had to learn I decided to learn the system myself, so I could take and go against all the windmills, because that's a part you will see, that it will always be a lot of windmills working together against what you would like to do. So I learned the system myself during the summer vacation that year. I felt that without that degree of personal hands-on experience, I would not have sufficient understanding of the frustrations and irritations that my staff would be encountering. I would not fully appreciate the fear of change and the consequent opposition to change that would result. I needed that personal experience to determine the best policies and organization for success. My experience also made it clear that an innovative and collaborative approach was needed to overcome some of the deficiencies in the available systems. As a dean and previously as a director of the institute, the EDR system enables me to monitor all these aspects of the day-to-day running of the dental school. I can get an overview to spot problem areas, and then I can drill down into individual clinics, individual faculty members, individual students, and individual patient clinical records. Of course, the fact that people knew I could do this maybe changed their behavior. even when I wasn't actually monitoring their individual activities. Big brother watching you? Yeah, maybe. But the situation today with the laws, you are responsible. When you are a dean or a director of a clinical institute, you are responsible to follow the law, the patient security, all these aspects. There may have been some paranoia initially among some people, but I believe the fact that I and the responsible department heads and faculty members could now see what was happening meant the overall result was a culture of transparency and accountability, which was broadly welcomed by the staff. I believe that management, like medicine, should be evidence-based. I was now able to set the strategies and priorities for the institution based on accurate, detailed, up-to-date information. I comment briefly on some individual areas. Just to show you where this is the operational theater at the Department of Oral Surgery and Oral Medicine. It was easy when we implemented the EDR. It was easy to see the activity. It was easy to see where do we have available chairs, available space for new patients. Previously, before that time, then they had to go into the paper and look at the diaries. This is easy. We do have 4 operational theater rooms, and we can see the availability, both whose of the surgeons will be available and who and do we have available chairs. Of course, having an electronic system, transparency, well, you can follow all the staff at the faculty at all moments. And you can take out reports. What has been their activity during the last year or during the last couple of years? Here is just a sample for the student log book, where you can see the students' activity. It's a very good thing to do when we have exchange students, and we have exchange students from Riga, we do have from Dublin, from Paris, from Montpellier, and when we are sending them back, they will then have a report of what they have done during their exchange period at our university. So it's easy to record what they have been doing during their exchange period. We can also see the numbers of treatments in the various clinics and compare them with the billing revenues. I can compare the rate at which treatments are being charged between different clinics and different faculty. Of course, the automatic feed from the clinical data into the billing data means that fewer chargeable items are being lost. Anyway, but now I can also identify where perhaps some clinicians are being too kind to the patients and recording clinical treatments in a way which means that they are charged at a lower rate or are not being charged at all. Our tradition in Oslo was that we have a lot of kind professors, a lot of kind teachers. They were not billing, well, you don't have to pay. And what we recognized after implementing an EDR was that, believe it or not, but our income was increased from 2004 to 2007 with 120%. That means we had 15 million Norwegian kroners in 2004. In 2007, we had 36 million in patient income. Because now we're having an EDR, then it's not possible for a patient coming into the clinic and not be registered. Because the patient will be registered immediately, and it's not possible to send the patient out. No, you don't have to pay. You have to pay. So from our point of view, it was excellent in increasing our budget by 120%, having control over the patient flow and our staff and their work. In an academic role, I found the EDR also imposes some extra demands, but the advantages were just as clear. The process of entering authorization, grading into the system is slightly more time-consuming than scribbling in paper. But I can now view a detailed structured set of information regarding a treatment plan and see all the relevant results as the plan is carried out. I can retrace the student's diagnostic analysis and prompt consideration of alternatives. Can monitor outcomes and carry out quality assurance far more systematically. If the authorities had told me, asked me at the time I was the director of the institute without an EDR, saying, how good are you? How many nerve damages you got on each wisdom tooth you are removing? I couldn't give them any answer at all, because then I do have to go through a lot of paper diaries to give that answer. But of course, when you do have an EDR system, it's easy to do quality control. To say that, well, we do have nerve damages on every fourth patient if we have treated 1,000, maybe 4 out of 1,000. How many fillings are lost during the first year? How many crowns are lost during the first or second year? How many implants are you losing? This is much easier if you do have an electronic record in that situation. However, what an EDR system are not giving you is a research program or the possibility of making it into research. Well, you get the data, but to handle the data for research purposes, then you have to do something else. And I will show you that during my presentation. When you are using an EDR, it's important, and I do hope that most of the European schools, and also the American and Asian and Oceanic schools, should use one system to make diagnosis. Because if we should collaborate over the borders between Europe, between America and Europe, it's important to have a common diagnostic systems. A lot of our former, former professors in Europe, in America, they worked during in the early 70s. They decided to find one system for diagnostics. That was taken and approved by WHO, and that's the ICD-DA3. It was a committee led by the late Professor Jens Pindborg, and it's described in detail what the different dental diagnosis would be. ICD-DA3 is based on ICD-10. That's the, for the moment, the medical diagnosis used by the WHO, and where a lot of member countries have signed that they should use it. But we still know that some countries are still not using it, even if they have signed. You can go to the US, where they are still using ICD-9 in many situations, but that's probably due to the insurance companies. Maybe they are very conservative, but the WHO, they decided that within dentistry and stomatology, it was necessary to develop a diagnostic system specific for stomatology and dentistry. And it was done based on ICD-10, in oncology, in psychiatry, and in dentistry, stomatology. This is just a sample of using the ICD-10 VA3. As a clinician, of course, I had to take a lot of time to learn how to use the system. And I found that entering data accurately into the computer sometimes took longer than scribbling information on paper. The experience helped me to deal with the inevitable resistance on the part of some of the faculty, especially some of the older ones, as I mentioned, who are sometimes not so comfortable with a screen and keyboard. The students, of course, take to it very easily. But the advantages also became very clear. I never had to cancel a patient appointment because the notes were lost. I can go back to the 80s and the 90s, where is the diaries? Oh, maybe at the Department of Endodontics, at the Department of Cardiology, but we can't find it. Maybe it's in the student's bag. And sometimes it was impossible to do right treatment because the notes were missing. And I'm sure most of you know this situation where you can't or you couldn't find the notes of different patients, or something there, something here, and that was a situation we would like to remove. I could easily see the patient's previous treatments easily performed by other departments. I had immediate access to all x-rays and radiology reports alongside the patient notes. Detailed discharge summaries for patients produced by other institutions were far quicker and easier to produce. Electronic interfaces with the Social Security Department, with dental labs and with other healthcare institutions became automatic, timely and accurate. This is just to show you a summary of a patient's diary, where you easily can see the diagnosis, to see the treatment plan, and you can see all the secretaries. They put in notes if a patient has called you, if a patient has said something they would like to complain, whatever. Easy to get access to these data. This is a sample of the diary where you make the diagnosis. You can just drag them up and you find what has been done so far. Is it completed or is it planned? In Oslo, we also got a PACS where we could include all the x-rays into the same diary system. So you can always see detailed x-rays with different OPG or single x-rays like this, or even a CT or a combined CT into the system. That's a part, so it's integrated. The same is also our experience was that we also included clinical photos, and especially in oral medicine, it's quite important to also see the clinical pictures of changes, differences in oral mucosal tissue. So the PACS is integrated with X-rays and clinical pictures. Here's just a sample of treatment planning. So what are the researchers' requirements that the EDR system does not satisfy? Researchers clearly need to discover any relevant previous research to avoid duplication and to identify potential collaborators. Some researchers are amazed to discover that the person working down the corridor already has some existing data sets that could be very useful if only they know. And I do have a lot of samples where people, even in the same department, are not knowing what their colleagues are doing. Of course, it should not be like that, but that's the fact. Getting institutional approvals, ethics approvals, and funding can be a major hurdle. People who meet at events like this one often become collaborators, but a more systematic method would be welcome. Developing an effective questionnaire takes a lot of skill and experiences, especially when multiple people are included in a multi-center study. Having insufficient numbers of qualified patients in one's own institution may often be the driver for a multi-center collaboration. Scanning patient records for suitable candidates, even using an EDR system, can be a hit and miss process. Patients' medical history sometimes need to be extracted from the EDR and copied into the questionnaires. Short of rekeying all the data, researchers usually require considerable IT support to achieve this. Simply getting appropriate questionnaire into the hands of the practitioners who have agreed, or in the case of students being told to collect the data, can be a challenge, especially if the study involves private practitioners. The data collection process must comply with all the security and patient's confidentiality requirements. Again, this becomes a more complex issue if the study involves private practitioners, or if it involves multiple centers and multiple countries with different regularity regimens. Access to the consolidated data and the statistical analysis of it is another issue that is more complex in an international multi-center project and raises additional security, legal and control issues. Getting peer-reviewed and published, often a time-consuming and frustrating process, but it's the requirement that is driving all others. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that doing clinical research in the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s were much easier. Today, the laws are very strict. You have to take very good care of all personal information, especially sensitive personal information. And it's sometimes you feel if you are chairing clinical studies, you have to be a bureaucrat, you have to learn the bureaucracy, you have to learn about the laws. And if you are not following, then you can, of course, expect immediately first page at the evening press. So we have to learn the law, we have to do our studies due to the law, but it's quite difficult sometimes. Dental research doesn't only raise requirements for the researchers. As the head of the clinical and research operation, I am legally responsible for ensuring and demonstrating that all research data in the institution is collected, stored and used on an appropriate manner and should then be accessible only by individuals authorized to do so. I must ensure and be able to demonstrate that patient research data is properly deleted at the appropriate time due to what the regional ethical committees has decided. Up until now, there has not been any electronic infrastructure to support the secure collection, storage and sharing of patient-specific research data within a single institution, left alone for a multi-center global collaborative study. I had no way of answering the regulators' questions. How many research projects do you have? I was asked by the university head 3-4 years ago, asking me, how many clinical research studies do you have now? It took me 2 months to get the result of the different clinical studies performed at our institute. And that was, of course, a problem. At the same time, the rector, he asked all the faculties, all the institutes at the University of Oslo, because he was going to Harvard. And he would like to know who are collaborating with Harvard at the University of Oslo. Didn't get any answer at all. He went to Harvard only with a couple of collaborating projects, because they were not easy to just take it out in a report. Harvard or Boston, whatever. That was not a possibility at that time. And current EDR systems do not enable me to supervise and oversee research projects. So in 2009, a group of like-minded deans from the leading research university met in Miami to consider the challenge of research and develop the vision of the kind of electronic system that was needed to meet those challenges. We concluded that the only way we would take a solution to this problem within a reasonable time frame would be for us to assume leadership. We therefore jointly created the UHN Consortium and established its mission. The signatories to the charter document were myself and then deans of these universities, as you can see here, Universidad Complutense de Madrid, Birmingham, Alabama, Hong Kong University and King's College. We were then having the same idea of developing a electronic research portal to do and to solve a lot of these different problems and to make it easier to collaborate internationally in multi-center studies. We knew that the right approach was to be researchers-led. We would like to develop this by ourselves, user-developed, and not from a computer company saying that, well, this should be the right thing. We know, as researchers, exactly what we need, and then we developed it from our point of view. We felt that an existing EDR software company would not, and possibly should not, divert its focus from its EDR system in order to take on this additional research challenge. In any case, we wanted to create a system that would work with any installed EDR system or none, because the UHN software or the portal we have developed can also be a standalone part. And it's not a typical dental. It can be used in medicine. At the University of Oslo, also the medical faculty and the psychology faculty are taking the system in use. Our experience and that of other universities was that university IT departments could not be expected to develop successful user applications. We had originally tried that approach to create our own EDR system in the beginning of the 90s, which was not successful. At the University of Oslo, we have a big IT department. They decided that they would like to develop an EDR for us, but it was completely impossible to use. They used 5 years to develop it, and we couldn't use it. We therefore identified a small group of individuals whom we already knew to have a good knowledge of dental school requirements and could work with the researchers to understand and respond to their needs. We asked them to form a company which would be dedicated to the creation of the new UHN system. The team took the approach of working closely with the researchers, particularly in Oslo and in King's College, to build and install successive prototypes. The first prototype was just a demonstration system to help clarify requirements. The second prototype was installed and started being used in Oslo in November 2010. Pilot projects have since been run in several universities, including Oslo, Madrid, Lisbon, and a collaboration between New York University and the University of Oslo. The system we are launching here at the ADEE is the result of 4 successive prototypes. The University of Oslo has sponsored the development of this UHN system and owns the intellectual property rights on behalf of the UHN consortium. And of course, I'm proud of letting you or identify to you that the University of Oslo, they have a stand here at the ADEE this year, where you can have more information about the research portal. So what exactly does the UHN system do for researchers? Let's see how the system capabilities match up against at least the researchers' requirements. The UHN system enables researchers to publish details of themselves, their projects and their existing data sets, which in turn enables other researchers in the UHN community to find the people, projects and data sets which may be relevant to their own projects. The system helps researchers gain ethics approval by enabling them to demonstrate compliance with applicable national security, patient consent and confidentiality requirements. Most of you who are deans or heads of the different departments, you know that with this system, then it's not possible for a researcher to start a clinical project without approval of their heads. So in the system, you have to prove that you have ethical approval. You do have to show how is the financial structure of this project. All these things should be in the portal before the heads are approving the project, saying that, well, go on, it's okay, this clinical project can start. So it's some sort of security controlling. Well, you can say that, well, it's a little bit Big Brother watching you, but the laws of most of the European countries of today that you have to have that control. But of course, we didn't develop a system only for controlling and to be for the heads, for the deans. We also had to develop a system for the researchers. It should be a carrot for the researchers to use the system for the future. And I do think we have developed that. The UHN questionnaire system enables researchers, this is a carrot for the researchers, they can put in, make questionnaires easy, and they can put in clinical pictures, just to say that, well, this, if it should be or involve a lot of different researchers, it's important that you say that, well, this is a tongue with that diagnosis, so you can calibrate all the participants in a research project with the questionnaire developed, because you can then put in different clinical pictures. And what's important, if you look at Horizon 2020, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Horizon 2020, the big European Union research funding for the next years. Practical, clinical or practice-close clinical research will be very important. That means that we can't only sit at the different universities and chair research projects by ourselves. We have to collaborate with dental practitioners or doctors out in our different outpatient clinics. And that means that we have to have systems so these people who are not familiar with research, that they know exactly what is a dry mouth, what is a lichen planus, how is it looked with a lobular tongue, whatever. So we do think it will meet some of the criteria. Institutions with an EDR can extract clinical metadata on a regular basis to be imported into the UHN system. This enables researchers in interconnected institutions to determine how many patients there are that match a given role or a profile in their own, and in each of the other institutions, only the number of matching patients will be revealed, along with the name of the responsible clinician. This enables the researchers to make contact to explore the possibility of creating a research cohort within that other institution. There is no visibility or transfer of any patient data in this process. However, within a single institution, the system can be used to extract a patient's medical history to save the clinician from having to type the data into the questionnaire. Well, it's developed with the two purposes. One for in-reach questionnaires, where you are doing the research within your own institution. But it also, an outreach possibilities, enables questionnaires to be deployed to private practice systems or to laptops and tablets that are not online to the institution's network. Outreach deployment establishes a secure, encrypted mechanism for the anonymized data to be returned to the researchers via the email. Collaborators on a project can access a shared secure project file stored which will be located at the lead institution. Getting peer-reviewed and published, so far this is still a manual process, I'm afraid. If anyone has any ideas how peer reviews and publishers can be managed automatically, I'm sure our development team would like to talk to you, and they will be on the stand here. So what does the UHN system do to enable monitoring of research projects and demonstrating compliance with regulations? Well, the system provides an oversight capability which enables ad hoc monitoring of file contents and can produce regular reports and warning. Student research projects can now be properly controlled and supervised, which means we can allow students much more meaningful exposure to research. That's one of the new things we have done in Oslo to improve or to strengthen up the research for our students. A summary of the UHN system. I'm sure most of you, if you are heads of departments or deans, you know that where is the research data stored? And you will find that a lot of the data will be stored on memory sticks, at laptops, at hard disks, closed into different office, in a safe, whatever. You don't have control. And this situation, well, it's not easy to live with that for the future. So I do think we try to develop a system where you should have control. So I do think that I can end my presentation here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I learned already very many new things, many new details about the different possibilities in recording systems, and I would like to have some more time to ask you some questions, but we spend all the time hearing you, so if there's one very urgent question, I think I can allow one question. Okay, I would like to ask a question. If I understood you right, there is the possibility to combine this UHN system also with different recording systems of patients. So if the university has already a recording system of patients, it's also possible to combine with this.
It will, the whole system of UHN are built, so it should be operative or it should operate together different EDR systems. Even if it's in the hospital in Norway, the authorities are now planning for installing a research system like the UHN system into the hospitals to have a national standard. Then it might collaborate with different, even if it's Siemens, Salud, axiom, whatever, so they should be able to communicate.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can all look forward to a very interesting research cooperation. And now I would like to give you a small present from ADEE. Thank you very much for your present. Okay, now I would like to welcome our second speaker. Our second speaker, I'm just looking for him. Our second speaker is Harald Eriksen. Yes, he is coming. Professor Eriksen is also first coming from Oslo, now from Tromsø. He acquired Doctor of Odontology in Oslo and then became a specialist of endodontics there and attained the Master in Health Administration also in Oslo. And then he was full professor there until 23. And then, since then, he is now the full professor at the University of Tromsø. We see already a wonderful picture from there, I think. And as being there in Tromsø, he is regarded as the main author of the program in dentistry for the University of Tromsø, being a little bit special, I think, and I'm looking forward to hear your lecture about outpatients in the clinical education. Please.
And first of all, thank you for a nice introduction. I didn't hear if you mentioned that I retired 2 years ago, but I'm still very much fascinated by what's going on in Tromsø, so that's my background. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity on behalf of my institutes. Not only for myself, but really on behalf of my institute, for summing up the experience with our outpatient undergraduate clinical teaching. And then briefly to the way I have designed this lecture. First, I will introduce you briefly to Tromsø and the university, then give you some background information of the requirement put forward from the Norwegian Parliament when they decided to establish dental education in the north of Norway. Then more in detail our aims for the outpatient clinical training, and then into the evaluation both of the general requirements and then some reports on the evaluation of how this program is functioning so far, and then a brief conclusion at the end. So let me first start with the place. You see the picture here, the background picture. This is taken during midsummer, and it's a midnight picture of Tromsø. As you know, there are midnight sun for 2 months in the area, and daylight all through day and night for at least 2 months and even more. And if we go to the next. I think if we consider the outpatient clinical training, I'm fully aware that Tromsø is far from the only place where you have outpatient clinical training. There are many places. But I think Tromsø is probably one of the most extensive programs for these outpatient activities. And if you consider this title, The Art and Science of Clinical Dentistry, you will find that as a title of many clinical textbooks in our field. And we consider that the art should be taught and taught to the students where you have many of the artists, and that's out in the clinics. And the scientific part should be taught at the university where we have the scientists and we have the background for evidence-based dentistry. So this combination makes sense if you consider it in relation to the very commonly used framing of the title of many textbooks in dentistry. So briefly, the place and the university. This is a picture taken in April, and you see it's still winter around, and it shifts very rapidly from winter to summer in the area. This is not the whole, but part of the university, where you have the university medical hospital as a central unit. You have the dental school, the dental building up on the right-hand side, and in the lower part, towards the fjord, which is close to the city, you have a research unit that is commercializing good ideas from the university and take that on to the market. So this is a combined type of activities which you can see on the picture. And then to the university, which is recently framed as a Norwegian Arctic university. And you see it's far north if you consider the globe. And then more to what I'm going to talk about. This is showing the 20 clinics which we are established as a network for this outpatient clinical training. And most of them are in northern Norway, but you also have some in mid and south of Norway. So the University of Tromsø and the dental education is visible all over the country. And an important part is what's stated there in Norwegian Universitetstandklinikk. All these 20 clinics, which are public dental clinics, they have this plate on the front door indicating that they are university dental clinics affiliated with Tromsø, which is an important sign that they belong to our network. Then to the requirement, the official recommendations from the Norwegian government. As you see, it was put forward in 2002. It's 12 years ago. And what they wanted to do was to first contribute to increase the number of dentists in Norway. There was a shortage, and I don't know if it still is, but there was a shortage of dentists in the whole Norway. And specifically, both for dentists and specialists in the north of Norway, which have the most severe problem with shortage of dentists. And we should plan an evidence-based curriculum, and this is related to the dental education in general. And then focus on duties and responsibilities related to public dental health service, and we should apply a decentralized education model, and this is what brought up the outpatient clinical training. And just for you to show the 3 core publications that we have used for two of the 2 first ones for designing the program and the outpatient clinical activities, and this last publication from 2011 summing up the early experience from these outpatient activities. And then to the aims of the outpatient activities. We thought that we should expose the student to real-life clinical conditions, develop clinical skills, both volume and patient diversity. We should establish collaboration with the dental team and other health professionals out in the public dental health clinics, develop knowledge, skills and attitude, with emphasis on public dental health issues, and have a community approach, and of course emphasize evidence-based treatment planning. And most of these guidelines or goals are taken from this Schools Without Walls, this second publication that I showed you on the previous picture. And then there are also aims related to the society. We should stimulate recruitment to the public dental health, develop skills with relevance to public dental health needs, quality enhancement of the public dental service through network building, and this is what is indicated by this university dental clinic sign, that they should identify themselves in these 20 clinics with the University of Tromsø and give valuable feedback to the dental school, so we work in close collaboration with these 20 clinics. And then to the logistics, we have the whole 7th semester, which is the start of the 4th year student education, and 1/3 of the 10th semester is spent on external clinics. And there are 2 students in each clinic, so we have 20 clinics for a group of a total of 40 students. We have defined requirements for being accepted as an external teaching clinic, and only public dental health clinics complied with these requirements. There were some private clinics that were interested, but looking into our requirement for functioning as a teaching clinic, they just say that it's impossible to combine it with the economical considerations that you have to have in the private. So we ended up with only public, which is in fact fully acceptable, of course. And we had defined the requirement for being a tutor. And the tutors are attending calibrated session 1 week per year at the dental school in Tromsø. So all tutors from these 20 clinics are visiting Tromsø once a year and being calibrated and informed about what we are doing and be familiar with our study plan, so they feel that they really are linked to this program. And tutors are compensated with 30% in addition to the regular salary. And the clinics are compensated for reduced productivity, because it takes time away from the regular production when you are going from a treating clinic to a teaching unit. And weekly network-based teaching sessions administered from Tromsø. I'm coming back to that. And then a little more details about the logistics. If you consider the timing, which I already showed you, students are evaluated before start, and tutors and students are informed about the research. And we have also a final report from both students and tutor that's required at the end. And this is the basis for the evaluation I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. We have a report both before, during, and after these outpatient sessions. And we have defined the requirement for being accepted as a teaching clinic, as I mentioned. One of the most important things is information and communication technology that should be available so we can communicate during this period of outpatient teaching. And there is a total of 20 public clinics, as I mentioned. And these are located, the same picture that you saw at the start. And this university dental clinic sign is, I would like to emphasize, a very important part to identify these clinics with the University of Tromsø. And the communication is taken care of by this electronic contact with the clinics from Tromsø once a week. So we have this communication goes on every Wednesday afternoon. And we have defined requirements for being a tutor. You can just read what these requirements are. It's important that the tutors not are acting on behalf of their own experience, but they should identify themselves with the requirements of the curriculum and the study plan in Tromsø. And it's compensated for reduced productivity, as I said. It's important so they don't feel that they lose money on having the students visiting. And this network-based teaching, as I also have mentioned. And teachers from the Tromsø Dental School are visiting each clinic, which I also think is an important part of network building. And during these visits, we have not always, but quite frequently invited the local newspapers to make a report of establishing these clinics. So we have pictures from a local in Lofoten, which is part of the north of Norway here. We have the 2 students and the tutor. And this is from another clinic, and the tutor thought he was the most important, so he's the only one on that picture. The students were somewhere. But this is to inform the local people at these sites that the University of Tromsø is visible and present in their local surroundings. And then to the assessment of the teaching program. One of the requirements was to contribute to increase the number of dentists in Norway, and we have gradually increased the number of students from 10 to up to 40, which is now has been the level for the last 6-7 years. And a total in 2013, a total of 170 candidates have graduated, and I guess in 2014 there was 30-something more, so we are up to a little more than 200 dentists coming from our dental school. And the second requirement specifically meet the need for dentists and specialists in northern Norway. Out of the first 100 graduating students, more than 90% have stayed in the north, which we think is a very important result, because there was a discussion in Norway, and the previous speaker, Paul Whitehall, was involved in that among many others, because the faculties or the dental schools in Oslo and Bergen, which are both in the south of Norway, they said that we could just expand our programs to take 40 more students, 20 in each place, or just expand it. It's much cheaper and much more convenient than establishing a new dental school far away from everything. Our argument against that was that these students are from 19, 20, 25 years old, and they establish relations with the families, with the local area. They live in this maturing age, and that's probably the most important background for staying in the place that you are educated. And in addition to that, most of these public clinics that we use for external training are located in the north. And the result of that is that, as I said, 90% of the first 100 students, they stay in the north, which is a very rewarding result. And of course, we have got recognition for that from the Norwegian government. And we are also asked to supply the area with specialists, and we have a program in orthodontics, in pedodontics, and I'm trying out a new specialist in clinical dentistry, which means a comprehensive specialist program including endodontics, prosthodontics, and periodontology, and also dentoalveolar surgery and gerodontology. So it's a kind of combined specialty, particularly suited for more remote areas where you don't have the population background for establishing all these specialists which you have in dentistry in general. So we will see if that will be recognized as a specialist, or what will happen. The first class of 4 students have graduated, and in my opinion, I'm biased, but still, in my opinion, it was quite successful. They get a nice general overview of clinical dentistry on a higher level than you get from undergraduate education programs. And then focus on duties and responsibility in the public dental health service. Of course, these outpatient activities introduce the students directly to duties and responsibility in the public dental health system. And as a consequence, applying a decentralized education model, which I'm presenting to you. And then assessment of these more detailed aims that I introduced to you after these general requirements. Exposed to real-life clinical condition and develop clinical skills, including patient diversity and volume. And this assessment is based on evaluation and reports both from students and tutors. So we have a combined opinion from both those who are responsible out in the clinic and the students that are going through the program. And the tutor's evaluation is that the students were mature and caring in their patient relations. And for us, it was surprising to have this response, because these students in the 7th semester, they have half a year with laboratory training on mannequin heads and models and simulators, and then they had half a year of clinical training with patients. So they have one kind of laboratories half a year and one introductory course with patients. And then they are sent out. And many were kind of very doubtful if they had clinically experienced enough to act more independent in these clinics, but the response from the tutors is that I said that the students were both mature and caring, which was really a nice report to get back. Very reassuring. And they were reliable regarding anamnestic data collection and acceptable concerning manual dexterity. So they were skilled enough to treat patients after these 2.5 years of preparation in Tromsø. And the students said that they had got early insight in real-life condition and exposure to a diversity of patients, and developing clinical dexterity and experience and possibility to assist a specialist, because not all but many of these clinics had specialists as part of the team, and they also were collaborating with the hygienists, so they got this kind of team experience. As you can see, the production, I wouldn't go into detail, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with what the students produce during half a year midway in the clinical part of the study. But as you see, this means that they do a lot, and what is also quite obvious for both us and all involved is that there have a huge variation from almost nothing to quite substantial experience. And as they are out in the 7th semester, we can adjust for what they are missing or lacking out in the outpatient clinics and compensate for that when they return to the university clinic for the last part of the teaching program. And again, this is another overview, and they also get experience with emergency treatment, which is frequently missing in a university clinic because that's taken care of by professionals. And collaboration with the dental team, and I have already mentioned that they get this experience with team work. And they had positive report both from the students and the tutors. Develop knowledge, skills and attitude with emphasis on public health conditions. I have been into that already, but they are introduced and they have personal experience with the public dental health conditions and defining the needs of the population. And because we have this close contact, this network building with the clinic, we feel that this is a kind of mutual activity which is very supportive and I think very important. And as the tutor are saying, create conditions for exposure to public health needs and with emphasis on prevention. And the students are also taken out to institutions, child care centers and institutions, nursery homes for the elderly and hospitals, local hospitals around, so they are not only located in their clinics, but they are taken out with the dentist to institutions in which the public clinics are responsible for. So this is also part of the experience that the students get. And the students are reporting that they get experience in dental teamwork and exposure to local dental outreach activities, which means that they, as I said, are out in institutions and see how this is planned and executed in the local surroundings. And emphasis on evidence-based treatment planning. And The tutors are reporting that this contact with the university, this weekly contact, and also the yearly visit to Tromsø create conditions for an evidence-based approach mediated through weekly contact. And I think this is an important part of the program, that the tutors feel and identify themselves with what we are doing and what the students are doing when they return to the university setting. And the students particularly emphasize the tutor-supported activity through case discussion and project work. They have to have 2 small projects during their half-year stay out there, and this is discussed both locally and with the staff in Tromsø. And then advantages for the society, because it's not only considering the advantage for the teaching and the education program, but also for the society. And the tutors are reporting that it stimulated recruitment to the public dental health service, and that is confirmed by this more than 90% of the first 100 that ended up in public, and most of them in public dental health service in the north of Norway. So this program is functioning also as an advantage for the society, and particularly for northern Norway. And of course, develop skills with relevance to public dental health needs, which I mentioned several times already. And the clinics also reported that they experienced a quality enhancement of these clinics themselves, because they were challenged and they were kind of in a continuing education process together with the students. So it's not only the students that are in an educational environment, but also the tutors, and the whole clinic is part of an educational process, which many of these tutors felt very inspiring. And then, at the end, advantages for the university, because it's not only the student, not only the society, but also the university have some advantages of this program, in our opinion. Because we get valuable feedback from back to the dental school. These dental university clinics can easily develop into kind of a secluded or closed unit. They live their own lives and they document in electronic ways what they are doing and acting inside their own walls. But here the dental school get feedback on what is really the challenges out where the patients are. And this kind of combined communication is important for the university. And reflective discussion with student and tutor during and particularly after the period, because not all of these clinics are following exactly the guidelines that we put forward in the clinic in Tromsø, but some are taking shortcuts, some are improvising, as artists do. They improvise and they feel the need for that. And then we discuss what is acceptable or unacceptable type of improvising and going away from the evidence-based guidelines. And these are fruitful discussions and maturing for all involved. And then post-session evaluation. And I would like to conclude this, and I talked with the chair lady that I could conclude 10 minutes before this presentation is ending, and open up for some questions if you have some. And I would like to go through, because it's not a complete success, of course. Everything has some disadvantages, and I would like to just show you a few of them. This information and communication system could be improved. We started out in collaboration with this technology unit at the university, but it took us 2 years to establish something which was acceptable. And it's not easy to to link up 20 different clinics all over Norway and have that to function in a kind of TV-based or screen-based meetings. But I think it has evolved gradually to be better and better. But this was not easy and a very important task to link these outpatient clinics to the university in Tromsø. Appreciation of the network, the university network effect, I already mentioned, and this is, I said, it's a negative experience, and this is, of course, not negative. This is a positive thing. But some of these students mentioned that they had wanted more support from dental assistants, and in our planning process, we were not fully aware of the role of the dental assistant. And as you saw, the tutor, the dentist, were compensated for these teaching activities, but there was not included any compensation for the assistants or the secretaries. So we thought that this clinic would more or less include this as part of the natural activities, but thinking back, we could probably have been more concerned also with the assistants and take them more actively into the planning process and maybe also the reimbursement system that we introduced. At least that was mentioned by particularly the students. Strangely enough, more patient diversity. They were challenged by the diversity and wanted even more diversity in the patient selection. Of course, you have to consider that they are 7th semester students. They are far from fully educated, and you cannot introduce them to all kinds of dental problems. So this is probably not ethically acceptable to introduce the students to too much variety and diversity. And then some were claiming that the living conditions were not acceptable. The local clinics were responsible for organizing housing for the students. They are out in 4 months, and they have to have an acceptable place to stay, and most of them were satisfied, but some of them said that the living conditions were below what they not accepted, but what they wanted. So, and of course, they have to be taken care of, and they have to feel that they are comfortably settled in the area where they are going to stay for a whole semester. So this was a brief summary of the plans, the requirements from the Norwegian government in order to establish Dentistry in the north instead of expanding the 2 existing in Norway, and then the guidelines and the aims for establishing this external clinical program for the students, and an evaluation both of the general requirements and the more specific requirements and aims related to these clinical activities, and this, as you saw, based on both tutors' opinions and the students' reports back to the university. And that's the end, but there is one thing I want to say just at the conclusion. And this is, I show you the program, and I show you how it functions. And the most important part of this functioning is probably the enthusiasm and devotion from the staff at the Institute of Clinical Odontology in Tromsø, because if you don't have a devoted staff, then do their best to run these things. You can have as nice plan as you like, but it's not going to function like we see it in Tromsø. So, and I know there are many from Tromsø here, so you are included in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interesting example how to solve very special problems you had when you started in Tromsø. And I think it's also a very good example how important it is that the faculties, the dental school, are well distributed within the country to reach all the patients. Now we have some minutes left for some questions, and I would like to ask you to come to the 2 microphones here on the stairs if you have any questions or remarks to our presentation. Any questions? Please, yes, go to the microphone so everybody can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson, for your wonderful presentation. It has been a lot of work, and I can understand that one of the worries of the faculty will be how to keep in control of the evidence-based teaching that you learn your students.
Yeah.
Because when you send them out, you send them to practices of dentists who have been graduated long before, in most cases. Can you tell us a little bit about how to maintain your evidence-based approach to teach the students in combination with the outreach program?
Yeah, it's a balance between control and diversity and result-based experience. And of course, you cannot control this to the extent that you could do in an internal university setting. But I think, and the reason I emphasized and repeated the importance of this network building and the running communication with these clinics and this feeling from the tutors that are into a continuing education program, it doesn't secure, but it adds to the evidence-based approach to treatment. But of course, we cannot be sure. And you have the artists out there that do strange things. So, but that's also part of dentistry.
I think that's really a very difficult task to solve, and all clinics working together with private practices, I think, have these problems. And I would also like to ask a question. Are the tutors in the outreach clinics to assess also the competencies of the students? Do they give feedback, I think, of course, but do they assess also the quality of what the students did during their treatments?
Could you repeat the core of your question?
Do the tutors in the outreach clinics also assess the quality of what the students are doing with the patients, their treatments, their fissure sealings? Do they assess the quality?
Yeah, I think they do, but I have no exact information. I know they do, but of course quality assurance is part of running a public clinic. So this is implemented in the natural clinical activities, but I cannot answer you specifically about quality assurance programs for the students. They go in as part of the clinical activities.
Here we have another question, please.
Thank you, Professor Erickson. That was a very nice presentation. I was wondering about the students and how happy they were and how much input they got into exactly which placement they went to.
How happy the students were?
Yeah, can they choose which placements, whereabouts in Norway they go for their placements? And do you have any problems with every single student wanting to go to placement A and not every student can go, obviously, because there's only 2 places there?
I think I have to go.
How do you choose which student goes where? Do the students get to choose where they go? Or do you choose where the students go? And is there any conflict with some students, with too many students wanting to go to some areas and not enough going to others?
Yeah. If the students themselves choose, or I think it's a combination. You have some that have family responsibilities, children, so on. They are staying in Tromsø, close to Tromsø. But the others, some in the audience, how do we organize it? I forgot about it.
They're appointed.
If you want over to the so you can answer if they choose the place they want to stay, or if it's decided by the university.
Could you open?
Yes, the students speak themselves on the line. On the first one, would choose from the first and the best clinic they wanted. So if there are 20 students, they have 40 different figures to pick from paper, and then they can choose. And if they don't like the clinic, they can change, of course, between each other. So we are very surprised that most of the students are very, very happy with the clinic they picked. And the clinic, sometimes, of course, they had to go to clinics they didn't want to. But when they came back, they were all very, very pleased.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. I didn't realise that it was so much trouble.
So if you
as you see, I'm very much dependent upon my colleagues in Crossroads to answer appropriate questions.
Okay. Thank you for your help. I would like to pass over to the next question. Or is you wanted something to add?
I would like to tell more because you wasn't able to answer about the quality evaluation or the competence evaluation. The students have a logbook with them.
Okay.
And then every procedure is evaluated with A, B, or C, or D level. And A, B is accepted level. So there is an evaluation for the student.
Thank you very much, because I think it's very important to have this control. But first, I would like to pass over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Eriksson, for your so interesting lecture about your university. We had a lot in Latvia. Say please, would be possibly to include in your university network private practice as well. Would be possibly in your university network include private practice clinical training to proceed?
Yes, it would, but we have quite strict requirements for the included as an external clinic. And there were a few private practices that were very interested, but when they saw the costs related to the requirement and the reduced income of the private clinic, they withdraw. So, but we should definitely have a few private as well, because most of dentistry in Norway, as you know, is private. So, on the other hand, we were asked to...
Thank you very much.
We were asked to provide education to the need of the public dental health system, so there is a balance here.
Thank you. Perhaps you just stay with me with microphone. Okay, please.
Thank you once again for a very interesting presentation. We have a similar program in which students go on an outreach equivalent at what I gather is a similar state in the program. We started off sending our students for 6 months, but we found that even in 6 months they started courses of treatment, that they had problems with continuity getting it finished. So we have now had to extend that to a year. I know from your presentation that your students go in the 7th semester for 4 months, and my question to you is, do you think that's sufficient? Do they need to be out of their outreach placements for much longer?
The question was if it's possibly better to increase the time the students spend in the clinics, in the outreach clinics.
Okay.
They had made the experience.
You have experience with a more extensive type of external training. Or do
yes.
you think it's...
We started off with 6 months, and now we...
Please, excuse me, a little bit more distance to the microphone.
Okay,
So
we started off with 6 months, and now we are having to rethink and move to a year because we feel it gives our students a better experience.
Of course, it could be expanded. We started out with 1 semester, 4 months plus 2 months at the end, but of course it could be expanded, but it's continually considered. But so far we want to establish solid information about what we have planned, and maybe in the future. Maybe. I see the potential.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions or remarks? Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And I would ask the question that you told that clinics are compensated for reduced productivity. They are compensated by the university. and then it could be more expensive compared if they are running only in the university clinics? Or what about the money? You have counted it or not?
We haven't particularly calculated the expenses if they have been the whole period in university setting. Some might have done that, but I cannot answer if it's financially beneficial to have this program, or if we have to invest additional money in order to have this program running. But some are. I think you could return to that. I'm not prepared to answer it.
Okay, thank you. But anyway, university compensates for clinics this difference.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 minute left. If there's another question. Okay, this is not the case. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Eriksson. Our first session this morning, and I would like to see you again here at 11 o'clock and invite you now to visit the trade exhibition.
Kristina.
Have a nice cup of coffee. Thank you.
Continuation of this session. Well, all of you have in your abstract books the merits, the list of merits and achievement of Professor David Nash from Tennessee. From all of us, we have followed his papers and his advocacy for a better education for dentists. It's a pleasure and an honor to welcoming him, to giving us a speech with a very clear and obvious title: Dentistry is medicine. Dentists should be educated as oral physicians. Thank you, Professor Nash, you have the floor.
And thank you. May I acknowledge the organizing committee for their superb effort and excellent results in arranging our meeting and in welcoming us to beautiful Riga, Latvia. My topic is one that has elicited attention and controversy in dental education since the beginning of dental education, formal dental education in 1840. What is the relationship of the education for dental practice with the education for the practice of the other specialties of medicine? Theodor Reich, the distinguished Austrian-American psychoanalyst and one of Sigmund Freud's earliest students, made this comment. He said, a political statement should fulfill the three demands. It should be pleasant, it should be necessary, and it should be truthful. If not all three, at least two. Well, my comments this morning constitute a political statement, as well as a polemic. After 45 years as a dental educator, I can attest to the fact that there is much political about dental education. I suspect you will find my comments not pleasant. However, I do hope that you will find them necessary and truthful as well. Formal dental education in the Western world began with the establishment of the first dental school in 1840, the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery in the United States. Dental education in Western and Northern Europe followed, with dental schools developing in London in 1859, in Paris in 1879, in Geneva in 1881, followed by Scandinavia in the 1880s. The first university-based dental school was at Harvard University in 1865. The U.S. pattern of education for the practice of dentistry was separate and autonomous from medical education. This pattern was established when the two physician educators who wished to establish dental education were unsuccessful in the medical school in which they worked in Baltimore, and instead established the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery. They were unable to convince their medical colleagues at that time that dental education should be a component of medical education. A pivotal point in dentistry in North America was the commissioning of a study of dental education by the Carnegie Foundation in 1926. It was entitled Dental Education in the United States and Canada. The study was prompted by a growing concern relative to the quality of dental education and the dental schools that were developing in the United States and Canada. The author of the report was a Columbia University biochemist, William Guise, and the report is frequently referred to as the Guise Report. The report set the stage for significant improvements in dental education in North America in the last century, including the expectation that dental education should be based in science and that it should exist in an accredited university, not a proprietary setting. A major decision that the Guise Committee faced was whether or not dental education should remain independent from medical education, or whether the education of dentists should be integrated with that of physicians. Professor Guise stated the practice of dentistry should remain either an accredited specialty of the practice of conventional medicine or fully equal to such a specialty in the grade of health service. Guise argued for an enlarged view of dentistry in which dental surgeons and dental engineers became oral physicians, with oral physician being Guise's own term in 1926. Clearly, the preference was for dentistry to become a specialty of medicine. However, it was concluded that the environment of medical education at that particular time was not feasible such that this could take place. As a result of this Sentinel report, the dental education in the United States and in Canada has continued to exist separately and autonomously from medical education, with a curriculum of typically 4 years duration, following 4 years of general collegiate education. In contrast to Europe, in the United States, our students, after they graduate from high school at age 18, will go on to complete a collegiate education of 4 years, and typically not enter dental school until age 22, graduating at age 26. Dental education in the countries of the European Union is also autonomous from medical education, with a curriculum that typically is 5 years in length. The standardization of dental education in Europe is the result of the EU dental directives developed in 1978 to ensure freedom of movement for dentists throughout the European Union. Dental education existing autonomously from medical education has been characterized as the odontological model. It is contrasted with the stomatological model, in which dentistry is understood as a specialty of medicine, with the study for becoming a dentist only to begin after one is subsequent to completing a curriculum to qualify as a generalist physician. Typically, the stomatological education required 8 to 9 years of preparation, 6 in general medicine, followed by 2 to 3 in studying dentistry. The stomatological model typically existed in Southern and Eastern Europe in such countries as Spain, Portugal, Italy, Hungary, and Austria, following a stomatological curriculum. A transition to the 5-year odontological model began in the late 1980s in order for these countries to meet the minimum requirements for entry into the European Union. Austria was the last country to make the transition in 1998. In 2003, John Scott stated that the strength of the odontological approach is greater expertise in preventive and restorative dentistry, with the stomatological resulting in more comprehensive medical background. He also indicated a seeming paradox. Excuse me, I've got to get back here. My clicker seems to go on its own here. He also indicated a seeming paradox in that, quote, schools in the stomatological lineage are beginning to question the excessive extent and depth of the science and medical courses in the curriculum, and there is a realization among the odontological schools of the importance of strengthening the human disease elements in their curriculum. This historic background really provides a preface for the position I want to advance today, which is essentially an advocacy for the stomatological model for the education of dentists. Dentistry and dental education emerged and developed autonomously based on the overwhelming prevalence of oral disease and at a time where there were few individuals available to provide needed treatment. The assumption existed at that time that treating teeth was simply a mechanical endeavor, as no relationship was thought to exist between the health of the teeth and that of the rest of the human body. The dental profession, as a result of this approach, has expanded the number of dentists, has significantly reduced the prevalence of oral disease, and has demonstrated through research that oral health is also intimately related to systemic health and well-being. Therefore, in my judgment, the time has come to acknowledge that dentists should be physicians of the stomatologic system, and that our education must be integrated with the education of physicians being educated and trained for other functional organ systems. Dentistry is medicine. Dentistry is oral medicine. My use of the term oral physician is meant to emphasize a call for integrating dentistry with medicine and dental education with medical education, such that the dentist of the future has the core educational credentials of any other specialist practicing medicine. The term is not in any way intended to suggest that dentists not continue to be known as dentists. Being designated a dentist is a noble thing. Ophthalmologists are eye physicians, dermatologists are skin physicians, and dentists are oral physicians. My position is that all health professionals in the future, all dentists, will need to be physicians of the oral cavity, not just a few. There are some that in the literature are suggesting that dentists simply rename themselves as oral physicians. In my view, this is only a marketing strategy and really has no substantive meaning or value, absent these people really becoming physicians. I'm also beginning to hear people use the term oral physician in exchange for the term dentist today. However, in my judgment, a person is not an oral physician that does not have the education and training of a physician. There are several advantages of the oral physician model for dentistry and for dental education. It results in graduates who have a deeper and broader education in the biopsychosocial sciences applicable to dental practice. It results in graduates with better understanding of the human organism and its pathophysiology. It results in graduates with more sophisticated diagnostic abilities, better able to assess and manage the general health of patients while caring for their oral health. It permits the education and preparation of graduates uniquely qualified to treat the oral health of a growing patient population whose management is more complex because they are medically and or pharmacologically compromised. It permits graduates to be more competitive in the future environment of healthcare and more flexible in adjusting to professional changes. It responds to increasing appeals for dentistry to become more fully integrated into the healthcare delivery system and members of the healthcare professional team. It will create a recognition of physicians at large of the importance of teeth in the stomatologic system to general health, and an importance not understood nor appreciated by most physicians today. And it potentially creates a more cost-effective way of educating dentists as well as physicians. Dentistry as a profession must acknowledge that dentists require the same understanding of human anatomy, physiology, microbiology, pathology, pharmacology, and other basic biomedical sciences, that the stomatologic system is not conceptually different from any other organ system, and that dentists must be educated to the same levels of competency in the core of general medicine as other specialist physicians. Justification for the oral physician and this educational proposal is supported by environmental pressures that are forcing transformations in dental practice and in dental education. I conceptualize them as conceptual, biological, epidemiological, and professional. Conceptual reflection forces transformation of dentists into oral physicians. The oral cavity, the stomatologic system, is part of the human body. It's not remarkably different than any other functional organ system. There's no reason to believe that the first 20 centimeters of the alimentary canal is or should be treated conceptually different than any other part of the human body. While it has unique qualities and characteristics, there are differences in form and function, not in substance. Oral health is intimately related to general health. It is not elective, nor is it discretionary. The oral cavity is a mirror of health, with many systemic diseases being reflected through oral manifestations. Likewise, many oral diseases have systemic effects. The mouth is integrally and intimately related to the human body. It is not possible to identify a boundary between the pathophysiology of the oral cavity and the rest of the body. The blood that flows through an infected pulp or a diseased periodontium is the same blood that seconds later flows through the coronary arteries, the liver, and the rest of the body. Michael Glick, the Dean of the School of Dentistry at the University of Buffalo and editor of the Journal of the American Dental Association, has edited a book just released this spring entitled The Oral Systemic Connection. The distinguished scientists contributing to this volume provide extensive documentation for the mechanisms underlying oral and systemic conditions. They also detail the relationship of the health of the somatognathic system to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, pregnancy, pneumonia, immunocompromising conditions, and treatment of osteoporosis. Oral manifestations of systemic diseases are also discussed. Oral health is an essential component of health. Dentists must be able to evaluate the general health of their patients in caring for them, as well as participate in the provision of general health care in ways not dissimilar from any other specialist in medicine. Permit me to reference Aristotle and his logical systems. The application of science to the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment and healing of disease is medicine, major premise. Dentistry applies science to the prevention, diagnosis, and healing of disease, minor premise. Therefore, dentistry is medicine. Individuals who autonomously and definitively apply the principles of science to prevention, diagnosis, and healing of disease are physicians. Dentists are individuals who autonomously and definitively apply principles of health science to the prevention and diagnosis and treatment and healing of disease. Therefore, dentists are physicians. Conceptually, dentistry is a specialty within medicine, not a discipline separate and autonomous from medicine. Dentistry is to medicine as otolaryngology, ophthalmology, dermatology, and all of the equivalent specialties in medicine are. Concepts are intimately related to words. Our language is important. What we say and how we say it suggests what we believe and where our biases may exist. Frequently, the expression is used, and I've heard it used here, medicine and dentistry. And grammatically is a coordinating conjunction linking two independent nouns, clauses, or phrases. Dentistry is not independent of medicine. Dentistry is medicine. And contrasting the two with the conjunction and is inappropriate. What would we think of one using the expression medicine and ophthalmology, or medicine and pediatrics, or medicine and otolaryngology? Nonsensical expressions, because we know that all of those specialties are within medicine, not independent of medicine. Every time we use the expression medicine and dentistry, we affirm that our belief is that medicine is not dentistry. One might ask the question, if dentistry is not medicine, what is it? What is it? Reflection on advances in biomedical science forced transformation of dentists into oral physicians. We're living in a time of dramatic, almost surreal expansion of understanding of biology generally and of human biology specifically. Genomics, gene therapy, recombinant DNA, stem cell therapies, salivary diagnostics, tissue engineering, nanotechnology. Advances such as these prompt visions of a future of oral health based in sophisticated science. Molecular and genetic approaches to diagnosing and treating disease are revolutionizing healthcare. Understandings at this level are dramatically expanding our options for prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. In order to apply modern science, the contemporary dentist must understand modern science in a way, in my judgment, our typical dental education curricula do not permit. Our colleague Bruce Baum has expressed it so well. Quote, progress in biology and medicine is rapid and dental education is not keeping up. This situation cannot and should not continue. In the March 2014 issue of the Journal of the American Dental Association, Harold Slavkin, former director of the National Institutes of Dental and Craniofacial Research in the United States, penned an editorial entitled, Revising the Scope of Practice for Oral Health Professionals, Enter Genomics. In it he said, quote, the confluence of genomics, bioinformatics, and healthcare coupled with the mantra of faster, cheaper, better is already accelerating the use of genetics information to enhance healthcare. At our educational institutions, prepared to provide the critical knowledge and clinical experiences that will transform the practice of healthcare in the 21st century. And I think that Dr. Slavkin's conclusion and assumption was, no, they're not. The science base required for a dentist is no different than that of any other physician. Both must broadly understand human biology, including biomedical, bioclinical mechanisms, molecular biology, and immunobiology. However, the typical dental curriculum in North America devotes only about 850 clock hours to biomedical science instruction, while the average medical student has over 2,000 clock hours in basic biomedical sciences. A contrasting degree of emphasis on biomedical science in dental education versus medical education can actually be traced to the beginning. In 1845, one of the first dental schools in the United States no longer existed. The Constitution said only those medical sciences will be taught which are necessary for dentistry. While affirming that the dentist as an oral physician must be sophisticated in understanding the biological and clinical sciences of general medicine, it is also necessary to affirm that the oral physician must be able to continue to provide the same skillful and complex mechanotherapy as in the past. Epidemiological analysis forces transformation as well. Growing numbers of individuals suffer from chronic debilitating diseases. These medically compromised individuals experience oral health problems. In fact, many individuals are at high risk for the oral problems because of the systemic and chronically disabling condition. The dentist must be able to manage the oral health care of these individuals with diabetes, heart disease, cancer, immune deficiencies, as well as a myriad of other diseases and processes that require accommodation in oral health care. Furthermore, poor oral health can compromise general systemic health. Additionally, dentists must understand and accommodate to the increasing numbers of medications taken by their patients. In the United States, approximately 70% of our population takes at least one prescription medication daily. 50% take two, and 20% take 5 or more prescription medications. The percentage of individuals using pharmacological approaches to treating their diseases increases with age, with 90% of individuals over 60 taking prescription drugs. Many of these drugs affect dental therapy, requiring dentists to have a significant knowledge base of physiology, pharmacology, and pharmacodynamics in order to make necessary accommodations. The increasingly large cohort of aging individuals who are dentate and regularly seek dental care intensifies the importance of this issue for dentistry and for dental education. The European union population, 65 years of age and older, will increase 77% by the year 2050 to 58 million people. Clearly, European dentists will be called upon to treat increasing numbers of medically compromised individuals in their office. To effectively and safely provide care for these individuals, the dentist must have a working knowledge of the core of clinical medicine. Yet, the typical dental curriculum in the United States and Canada provides essentially no clinical education in internal medicine. None. Evidence suggests that the biomedical sciences studied in the medical curriculum only become meaningful to medical students during their third-year clerkships, when they're actually seeing patients who manifest some of the mechanisms that they have studied in their basic medical science courses. I'm aware of no dental school in the United States that has a clinical internal medicine clerkship or medicine rotation in a hospital. It is not atypical for our student dentists to graduate having never examined or provided care for a medically compromised patient. As a consequence of this failure to provide meaningful clinical experiences with medically compromised patients, to augment the biomedical science curriculum, many students come to view the science curriculum as it's a rite of passage. It's something I have to do. It's necessary so I can get to the clinic to learn how to do what I think dentists do, which is fix teeth. The World Health Organization report, Oral Health from the 21st Century, stated, quote, "The changing disease patterns, the advanced diagnostic and treatment methodologies, and the broadening of responsibilities illustrate the need for a new type of oral health professional, someone with special education skills in the care of the oral and maxillofacial process complex. These professionals will have principal responsibility for oral health care, and they may be assisted by specially trained support personnel. In addition to these generalist oral physicians, it is anticipated the need will remain for specialists. Oral health therapies are increasingly becoming more medical and less surgical. As this occurs, it is entirely within reason that physicians in the other medical specialties will begin to assume increasing degrees of responsibility for oral health. An analysis of the health professions forces transformation of dentists into oral physicians. An appropriate healthcare delivery system should acknowledge the unique and the important role of health for all aspects of the human organism and provide access to that care in a cost-effective manner. Dentistry must become fully integrated into the healthcare delivery system for oral health to receive its justified and equitable share of concern and financing from and for the public. This acknowledgement can only be achieved through a program of education in which dentistry shares a common core with medicine and dentistry becomes a recognized specialty within medicine. While there will be strong demand for the services and care offered by dentists, increasingly this care will be provided by paraprofessionals under the supervision of a dentist. One noted environmental analyst has said, "The middle is dropping out in society. Jobs and therefore people are becoming more sophisticated or less so." An assessment of this particular situation in dentistry suggests that we need to educate dentists who are becoming more sophisticated than they currently are and be leaders of a team of paraprofessionals rendering the less sophisticated dimensions of care. For over 90 years, dental therapists have been members of the dental team in New Zealand, providing oral health care for children under the general supervision of a dentist. This movement has spread to over 50 countries of the world. Dental hygienists have been members of the dental team in the United States for over 100 years. The use of hygienists on the dental team to assist dentists in managing periodontal disease is expanding throughout the world. In many countries, denturists provide basic, removable prosthetics care. The Dutch have recognized the need to enhance the education of dentists in the core of biomedical science and clinical medicine, and have added a 6th year to their former 5-year curriculum to, in partial, address this issue. At the same time, they have reduced the number of dentists they're educating by 20% and have expanded the dental hygiene curriculum to 4 years from 3 in order to teach dental hygienists the traditional skills associated with the international dental therapist. They have also increased the number of dental hygienists being trained. Their rationale is that in the future, dentists will be required to care for more complex cases and an aging population that requires greater understanding of medicine. And that many of the routine restorative procedures that dentists have typically performed can be accomplished by their new style dental hygienists. Specific strategies for educating an oral physician will really be dependent upon individual faculties of medicine and dentistry. The competencies of the dentist as an oral physician must be achieved, however, in a culture where the assumption is dentistry is medicine, and especially thereof. The goal of the curriculum and the teaching learning process must be to develop practitioners who are compassionate, provide evidence-based care, and care supported by science and consistent with identified standards of care. It's really beyond the scope of this presentation to outline an oral physician curriculum. However, the curriculum must, in my judgment, include participation in the basic core curriculum in which all individuals studying to be physicians must participate. In a theoretical model we developed at the University of Kentucky, we had in the model, the dental students would spend 3 years in medical school studying with their medical student colleagues, and then they would spend 2 years studying clinical, preclinical, and clinical dentistry. So we went from a 4-year program with 5,000 clock hours to a 5-year program with 7,500 clock hours. I think the interesting aspect of that, though, was our 4-year curriculum had 2,700 clock hours of preclinical and clinical dentistry, and we had exactly the same number after we went to the 5-year program, where 3 years were done in medicine. So after 5 years, adding 1 year to the curriculum, theoretically and hypothetically, we were able to educate a person who both had the medical credential and the dental credential in practicing medicine, in practicing dentistry. Now, I don't have time to go into the details, but there's an interesting phenomenon occurring in the United States today, and without going into the justification, several of our medical schools are beginning to move now to an accelerated 3-year curriculum. Offers a unique opportunity for dental schools in the United States to tap onto that, have their students participate in that 3-year curriculum, add the 2 years to dentistry, and in 5 years be able to truly be educated as an oral physician. What are some of the organizational and structural changes facilitating creating an oral physician? In 1995, the prestigious Institute of Medicine and the National Academy of Sciences in the United States published a sentinel report entitled Dental Education Crossroads, Challenges and Change. The report emphasized the need for closer integration of dentistry with medicine, and stated that any attempt by dentistry and dental education in the United States to maintain the status quo would lead to a path of stagnation and eventual decline. To visually emphasize this conclusion, the colors for the cover of the report were forest green, the academic color of medicine, and lilac, the academic color of dentistry. The report stated that many of the problems facing dental education were and are its isolation. It said, dental education and dentistry are made vulnerable by their relative isolation from the broader university, from other health professions, and from the restructuring of the healthcare delivery system and financing that characterizes most of healthcare today. Isolation breeds ignorance. Ignorance of what is occurring in academics and the larger world. Isolation from medicine breeds ignorance of the clinical advances in medicine applicable to the specialty of dentistry. Isolation from the core research and scholarship of the basic biomedical and clinical medical sciences housed in our medical faculties breeds ignorance of the advances in medicine that are significant to oral health. Conversely, isolation of medicine from dentistry breeds ignorance on the part of medicine regarding the important and significant contribution that dentistry has made and can continue to make to clinical medicine, the basic biomedical sciences, and the education of physicians generally. Isolation of dentistry from medicine and caring for the health of the public leads to more of what currently exists, a general discounting of oral health as an integral and essential part of general health and well-being. Integration is the solution to isolation. While it may have been justified to maintain dental faculty separate from medical education when dentistry was emerging as a profession, during the time when society was overwhelmed with the ravages of dental disease, environmental circumstances may make such a continued separation unwarranted. How is it possible to justify a separate faculty for the teeth? Consider the redundancy, the confusion, and expense to education of health professionals if we were to have a separate organizational entity, a separate faculty, if you will, for every organ system in the human body. How nonsensical it would be to have a separate faculty for those that wanted to study and treat diseases of the eye, or another for the heart, or another for the kidney, and any of the other 30-some specialties and subspecialties in medicine. Dentistry is medicine, and continued isolation from the mainstream of medical education and healthcare is not in the interest of public health. It's the time for dental education to lead in integrating dentistry with medicine where it conceptually and functionally belongs. Academic dentistry becoming a department of oral medicine and the faculty of medicine would immediately signal a commitment to understanding that dentistry is a discipline within medicine and not an appendage to medicine. And that oral health is integral to general health and well-being, not discretionary in healthcare. Curriculum changes required by the oral physician curriculum can only be effected in conjunction with our colleagues in medicine. Integrating dental education with academic medicine will facilitate these critically important curricular changes. Research and scholarship. Dentists have long been dismayed at the ignorance and valuing of oral health by physicians. Structural and curriculum integration offer the opportunity to address this problem. Research and scholarship languishes in many of our dental educations in the United States. Collaboration and interdisciplinary work is essential to meaningful research and to gain extramural funding. Structural integration of faculty members of dentistry with faculty members in the biomedical and clinical disciplines of medicine will facilitate oral health research. Patient care can also be enhanced by organizational integration. The world's healthcare delivery systems are becoming increasingly complex as a result of the scientific advances made in identifying and treating disease, and as a result of an increased societal commitment to care for the health of all people. Collaborative care with physician colleagues and other specialties would be facilitated across departmental boundaries versus the boundaries that now exist in having separate faculties and institutions for oral health care. Structurally integrated dental education with medical education offers the potential for greater administrative efficiencies and to effect financial savings. Significant duplication could be avoided if we participated in the administrative support and academic support systems of our faculties of medicine. The IOM report stated that financial strains will encourage institutions to consolidate or otherwise link programs in related areas, such as medicine and dentistry. The report went on to recommend that dental education experiment with less costly alternatives, such as merging courses, departments, programs, and entire faculties. And administrative downsizing of dental education by moving academic dentistry into faculties of medicine as a department would be consistent with the substance and the spirit of this recommendation. The recommendations of the Institute of Medicine have been essentially ignored in the United States since their publication in 1995. Today, in my judgment, dental education in the United States is experiencing the serious decline that was forecast by the Institute of Medicine. We diminish ourselves and our profession by perpetuating the myth that dentistry is anything other than medicine, and that dentists should not be physicians of the stomatographic system. The forces for change in our environment are such that the time has come for dentistry to assume its appropriate and rightful place as an integral and full participant in the community of medicine, and for oral health to be recognized as a significant and meaningful dimension of health. Isolation can no longer be tolerated. Integration is an imperative. For integration to exist, dentistry must address the challenge of structurally and organizationally integrating dental education with medical education. Student dentists must participate in a curriculum common to that of individuals preparing for other aspects of the practice of medicine. Dentists must be and must be understood as oral physicians, and oral health care must be a component of an integrated healthcare delivery system. There I said it. Thank you very much for listening to my polemic. As I said earlier, you wouldn't find it pleasant, but I hope you did find it necessary and truthful. And I guess more than anything, I hope that you found it somewhat provocative. Thank you very much. I think we may have a couple minutes for questions.
Thank you, Professor Nash. We have the time for 1 or 2 questions from the floor. So thank you very much, Professor Nash. Permit me to give you.
Thank you.
We have more time before I can now start the next session. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, may I have your attention about the special interest groups? The list of participants in which group you are assigned will be put there, the information there, just to remind you which group you have chosen. And also, may I ask you to pay attention that one group is situated on the other building, Institute of Stomatology. And today, this is the SIG number 4. Please pay attention that those who are in SIG number 4 should go to the next building, to the Institute of Stomatology. Other groups are situated in this building. Thank you.
Hi, I'm good, yeah. I'm Minaka.
Yes.
Last time.
Yes,
yeah,
we met last time. Yeah, how are you?
I'm very good, is that? Good?
You have enjoyed the
very much so. Very much so, yeah.
Such a lovely
Yeah. I think that's good, a lot of interest. And I was also suggesting Professor Ericsson's lecture in that topic was so well received. So I'm maybe to sort of suggest some other thing for next year.
It's always good to be here.
Exactly.
The first
I know.
of the academic year to think about things.
Absolutely.
So very nice.
For you all it is, but for us it's the last part of the year because we start in January.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's true.
Because it's the other way around. Yeah. But it's good. It's been good, and for us to benchmark ourselves where we are with whatever was happening here.
That's lovely. And it's lovely to know what happens in other countries and in other settings and in other way of
Absolutely. We share the information, yeah. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Yes.
I worked for you.
Oh, is it
Exatamente.